What is up, everybody? We're back here at King Film Sports for the NFL Super Bowl 58 prop bets here. There is nothing like a couple weeks of anticipation for the Super Bowl and examining all of the different prop bets that the sports books will throw out there. I mean, if you just log on to a sports book and check out how many different options there are, I mean, literally anything you want, you can bet on. Thousands of props here relating to the game itself, statistics, individual players, anything. I mean, the Gatorade color is a famous one, obviously. You've literally got so many options to play with here. Obviously, the sports books have the edge because they have more juice or edge than usual here to guard against that liability there. So you are going to lose money in the long run taking a lot of these plays so far as you don't have an incredible edge on the sports books. But as long as you don't throw an inordinate amount of money on a lot of these props, a lot of them are just for fun here, and you can actually make some money if you are smart with your predictions here or get a little bit lucky. So not going to be going into the most degenerate props. I will examine a lot throughout the video, but going to be going through some of my favorite ones here. So we'll start it out with the team first touchdown scores. Now, I know a lot of people love to throw the first touchdown score because it only takes a few minutes through the game to cash, maybe even just the first drive. And you also get the increased odds. For example, if McCaffrey's minus 200 something to score a touchdown in the game, you'll get him at plus 300, plus 400 for the first touchdown score. And for most players, you can get them above plus 1,000 odds. So a lot of people like those options, but I like the first touchdown score for the team here. And as you see, I've got McCaffrey for the Niners at plus 150 here. You see his anytime touchdown score for the full game is, I think, minus 230, depending on which sportsbook you're at here. So I think this guards against that a lot here. And how many touchdowns are these teams going to score in the game is also something that I'm referencing. I mean, this Chiefs defense is really good, so I think the Niners are in the ballpark of 2 to 3 touchdowns in the full game. So in that scenario where they only score 2, McCaffrey to get the first one plus 150, I think that's great odds there. I think they're going to be feeding it to him in the red zone here. If they're in goal, he's going to get a shot at it. Whether he gets in is another question there, but I just think that he has a great chance to get this first touchdown unless it's an over-the-top deep ball to Ayuk, Debo, or Kittle. I think McCaffrey's going to have a big say in the first touchdown for the Niners. And then similarly for the Chiefs, you've got Pacheco at plus 250. He doesn't get as many looks as McCaffrey would, obviously, because CMC is also great in the receiving game, but Pacheco runs really hard, especially in the red zone. He can break off a big run, so can CMC, and I just think that in goal, they'll let him run downhill, especially if they're within the 5-yard line. So I think that Pacheco, as well, against this tough Niners defense, will have his opportunities there in the red zone. Also, with that being said, the Niners defense has been soft against the run, so I think that creates additional opportunities. Great odds here for Chiefs, Pacheco, first touchdown, plus 250 there. Then first quarter result. In past Super Bowls, I've gone with the underdog and then played the spread at plus a half, laid a little bit of juice there, but that's just basically saying that I even win with a tie. In this scenario, the Niners money line minus 120. If they win, the bet cashes. If it's a tie, then it's a push, and my bet is returned to me with no winnings. And I just think that the Niners have to start out hot in this game. You obviously saw in the first 2 playoff games, they did not start out hot at all. Packers dominated them in the first quarter, although they only led 3-0, and the Lions obviously were up 24-7 in the first half. I don't think they can afford to do that against the Chiefs in this game. Sure, they can come back, but it's going to be very tough against Mahomes in the Super Bowl once again. So I think that it's incumbent on the Niners to get a hot start here if they start out with the ball, and I think Shanahan will have a great script dialed up for the first couple of drives here for the Niners with a couple of trick plays, a couple of people wide open. So I love the Niners to get out to a hot start, money line minus 120. And then I also like a first field goal made during the first quarter minus 115 here because I think that early in the game, these coaches will be conservative. We don't really have a Dan Campbell. Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan, although brilliant offensive minds, they are fairly conservative in these spots, especially early in the game. If you see a 4th and 2 from the 20-yard line, these guys are just going to take their points, I feel like, instead of pushing the needle and going for it earlier in the game, just trying to get points up there. The one thing that does scare me is Jake Moody, who has been a bit tumultuous throughout the season. Obviously missed that game winner against the Browns, and he's missed one in both of the 2 playoff games so far. So if this one comes down to a Moody kick at the end of the first quarter, I mean, all we can do is pray in that scenario. But I'd be pretty confident in Butker if he has to make one in the first quarter that he would be able to make one, even though a lot of people do forget that I think near the end of the first quarter or early second quarter, he did miss in that Eagles game when it was 7-7. A lot of people do forget that. It went off the left upright, but Butker's been a lot better this season, so we'll see there. Next, we get to the next slate of props. And the other one, I'm going with shortest field goal under 27.5 yards here for about even odds. And my logic behind this is very similar to the last one. I think both of these coaches very conservative. If they're in that Dan Campbell scenario where you're on the 2 or 3 yard line, I think these coaches early in the game will want the field goal, also later in the game, just to take the lead at that point. So I just think that the conservative coaching style of both of these coaches will lend itself to this prop, because basically under 27.5 is basically within the first 10 yards. So if either team is stopped in goal and doesn't go for it, we hit that prop there. So I really like that one. The next one is kind of a sucker prop, shortest touchdown. I'm going over 1.5 yards. So basically in this game, we can't have a 1 yard touchdown. And it sounds pretty simple. You know, a 1 yard touchdown seems like it happens a decent amount, but yeah, it has hit the last 4 Super Bowls. There has been a 1 yard touchdown, and the last one that it didn't hit, there was only one touchdown in the game, obviously Rams Patriots, and that was a 2 yard score there. So I think that I'm just taking this prop because I think that there's some value on the over, being that I do not see a lot of touchdowns in the game with these two great defenses. I see a lot of stops in the red zone. So I only see like 4 to 5 touchdowns in this entire game. So I think that you're getting some value there. You also don't have a Jalen Hurts who's just going to push it in from the 1 yard line. I feel like if a team is on the one, potentially C-Mac or Pacheco, they might run it and then get stopped back to the 2 and then have to throw it from there. So you've got a lot of possibilities there. Overall, in a lower scoring game, I do just like this prop here, but obviously plus 140 odds says that it's slightly unlikely there. Then team to score 3 straight times. I'm going with no plus 140. I just think that we're going to see an ultra tight game here in this one. This prop would have hit in the Ravens-Chiefs game, obviously lower scoring. I do think we're seeing a lower scoring game, as I've mentioned here throughout many points in this video. In the Niners-Lions game, yes, the Niners did score, I think, 4 or 5 straight times, but I do not think that this is the game script that we're going to get here. I think that it's going to be very tight, played within 1, maybe 2 possessions. I think it's going to be within 10 points this entire game. I think we're going to get a great game in that way. No team really going off and getting the momentum so big at points in the game. So give me no team to score 3 straight times, and we also get some good value there at plus 140. I do like that. And then finally on this page, I'm taking third down conversions, 49ers over 5.5. I think that they're going to get themselves into a lot of third and short opportunities here, third and manageable, and going to be able to run it with McCaffrey onto that left side. And then also a lot of times on these third downs, you have these big yard after catch receivers getting open for the Niners, big possession guys like Kittle and Jawan Jennings. I expect a couple third down conversions from him. And then you've also got Ayuk on those deep out routes, always getting open as well. And then you can toss it down underneath to Debo, so he could convert one there with yards after catch. So I just think that there's so many options here. And I do think that this Chiefs defense will force the check down, which will force these third and shorts from the Niners here. So I just think that you're getting some value on that prop also at plus 110. I do like that to go over there. Worth mentioning that the Niners were 6 for 12, so did catch the over for this prop in their last game against the Lions. Now we go to the anytime touchdown scoreboard, as I'm sure many of you guys will be betting on anytime touchdown scores in this game. And as I've said, just do not see many touchdowns in this game, so I do not see any value really on this board. As I said, if you're taking Christian McCaffrey or Pacheco, I'd go first team touchdown or just first touchdown score in the game. If you think that it's a higher scoring game, I would take either of them to go for 2 touchdowns, especially Christian McCaffrey. That would get him to plus money there. I think Kelsey has some value, but at plus 100, I mean, basically 50-50 chance. I think that's about where it should be priced. And then you see these other Niners players, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle. And I would usually take all 3 of those players there because in a lot of their games, they go higher scoring and 2 of the 3 will score. So you'll end up making a lot of money there. Even if one of the 3 score, you're not losing that much just because the odds are plus money. But against this Chiefs defense, Purdy might have a bit of a struggle there. They might want to just punch it in with McCaffrey. I see one of the 3 scoring, but I just do not think that that's great value there. So I'm not going to take any of those. And then for the Chiefs receiving options, you've got Rashee Rice at the receiver spot, plus 140. That's decent value if the Niners defense was a bit worse. Sure, their secondary can get got, but I mean, Rice at plus 140, I don't think that's great value there. And then getting into the 2 quarterbacks, you see Mahomes at plus 350. He's been able to scamper around these playoffs, and he did score the first touchdown in this matchup in Super Bowl 54 from 1 yard out on kind of a toss option play to the outside on the right side. But I just do not think that that's great value. I mean, Mahomes has been able to scramble on these third downs throughout the playoffs, which has been clutch and valuable for this Chiefs team, but Is he going to be able to get in the end zone? I think that's a different proposition there. So I don't really see that. And then you've got Brock Purdy at plus 850. I think that's much better value, and I'd rather have that than Mahomes. But still, even that, he had 50 yards rushing, but a lot of that is over the middle of the field, not really in the red zone, as you've seen. So I do think that that has some value there at plus 850, but I wouldn't take it. Then you've got both of the defenses plus 700, plus 750, respectively. I mean, if either team got a defensive score in this one, that would be absolutely massive for their cause, but can't take that one. And then you see some of the other players down the board here: Noah Gray, Richie James, Kadarius Toney. If you do think that he will have a bounce back game here, worth mentioning that Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore scored in last season's Super Bowl against the Eagles there. I mean, if you parlayed the two of those, you could buy the entire earth right now, but obviously very unlikely. And then Kyle Juszczyk plus 1,000. He did score in this game 4 years ago, so that is interesting there. Will Kyle Shanahan give him a fullback dive maybe from the 2-yard line to throw off the defense, or will he get loose in the secondary for maybe a 10-15 yard touchdown? I think that one has some decent value there. Then some of the FanDuel Super Bowl specials. A lot of these ones are interesting. Do not spend a lot of money on these because a lot of them include like 2 or 3 things that happen and they have crazy odds. But I do like this one for a couple shekels. Chris Jones and Nick Bosa to both record a half sack each, just because the Niners offensive line, especially on the interior, hasn't been great. I think Chris Jones could at least get a half sack there. And then Nick Bosa, I mean, it's been an underwhelming season for him, but he did have 2 against the Lions, and I think he's going against Jawan Taylor, the league leader in holding penalties, so maybe he'll be monitoring the holding penalties, let Bosa get by at least one time. So I do think these pass rushers will have a big say in this game, so I do like that prop, especially at plus 290 there. Then we get into a couple more props here. Safety during the game, plus 1260. Now, I know that there was a streak, I think 10 years ago, where there were like 3 or 4 straight Super Bowls with the safety. That was pretty crazy. Obviously, the Broncos Seahawks had it on the first play from scrimmage, which was wild. But I would not advise on taking this prop just because I think Mahomes is so composed in the pocket. Andy Reid will not allow him to be sacked there. I mean, I really think the Niners' only chance to get a safety within this game is a Jawan Taylor holding penalty, which would just be hilarious in the end zone there if something happened like that. But something else I will point out is Wishnowsky, the Niners punter, has been elite in terms of his inside the 10 downing of punts. So I do think that the Chiefs will be inside their 5-yard line at least once in this game, but I think they'll rely on Pacheco to get them out. So I don't see some great value in this prop. I mean, maybe Tommy Townsend can down the Niners deep in their own end, and the Chiefs pass rush can get in on Brock Purdy, but I just think that that's very unlikely there at plus 1260. Then you've got, will there be a 2-point conversion attempt? As I was saying, I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, so I just would lean no on this prop, but then obviously you've got to lay minus 160 odds. If you think it's more of a high scoring game, maybe Jake Moody misses an extra point, then you're getting some value there, but I just wouldn't take that. Then you get to largest lead of the game, and I'm going under on that prop. It kind of leads into the no team to score 3 straight times in this game. Under 14.5, this would have hit in the Chiefs-Ravens game and the Chiefs-Bills game. Would not have hit in the Niners-Lions game, but barely so. The Lions led by 17 points. I mean, it could have easily been just Lions up 14 at some point in that game, and this prop would have still hit, which is crazy. So I just think that this is a close game. I do not think that it gets out of hand, and I think that this one will hit. Worth noting that this one would have hit the last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl 4 years ago as well, and you're only laying minus 120 odds. I really do like that prop there. Then next we get to a prop here. Will there be overtime? And you can also bet which team you think will win in overtime. I won't go that far. I think that there are great odds, plus 1,100 for this game to go to overtime. Definitely taking that one with the state of these two teams, the spread on the game, and how I think it's going to be lower scoring. You look at previous Super Bowls, I mean, last year, very close, 35-35 in the waning minutes of the game. Could have easily gone to overtime there, especially without the holding call on Bradbury. Could have easily, if the Eagles had another chance at it. Then the time before that, Rams-Bengals. Bengals only down 3, driving down the field, and then they get stalled out. The last time these two teams played in the Super Bowl, it was 20-10. Niners were winning. Then obviously they choked the lead 24-20. But even that, if Jimmy Garoppolo hits Sanders deep on that pass, then you got 27-24. Chiefs could drive down and get a field goal. So a lot of these Super Bowls have been very tight, but not many have gone to overtime. Coincidentally, the only one that has gone to overtime in recent memory was that Falcons-Patriots one, where the Patriots obviously were down 28-3, stormed all the way back. But I just do think that there are great odds on this one to go to overtime, even though we haven't seen an overtime game in these playoffs yet, and we didn't see one last year either. So I think we're also kind of due for that one. And also the NFL would just love some extra playing time in this game. And then we get to another one here, which is the final score prop. And you can see all of the permutations of possible scores. You can just go through any sports book and find this here. My personal final score here will be 23-20. That's my score prediction for this game here. And I was actually quite surprised. Only 70-1 So if you put $10, you win 700. I do not think that that's great value here for this correct score, Niners 23-20. But obviously, this is kind of more obvious prediction because the spread is 2.5 in this game, kind of leading you to believe that the Niners will win by 3. And then obviously the total is 47.5. So the implied final score by those odds would be like 25-22 or like 25-23, which obviously can't happen. So the next kind of realistic score would be 24-21 or 23-20 in my case, because as I've said earlier, I expect this game to be lower scoring here, some more field goals. Maybe it's 20-20 going into overtime. Jake Moody tacks another one on for the game winner there. So I think that will be interesting. And it would be a very bad beat if the game was going under. For instance, it's 21-21 or 23-23, and then it ends up going over with the new rules in the Super Bowl and the playoffs. So that would be quite interesting there. And then the final one I'm going to break down here is the Super Bowl MVP odds. And obviously you can see Mahomes is the favorite in spite of the Chiefs being an underdog slightly in this game at plus 140 there. Other Chiefs, you've got Travis Kelce at plus 1,400. He did have a great AFC Championship game and it has just been phenomenal throughout these playoffs despite a down year in the regular season. But it's the ongoing thing where if the receiver or tight end gets the stats, then that also counts for the quarterback. So you're basically counting on Travis Kelce just being the only target for the Chiefs. I mean, that could happen, but it's probably going to Mahomes if the Chiefs win in this game, if we're being honest. Then you've got Pacheco at plus 4,000. I mean, I could see a scenario where that ends up happening if this Niners defense just cannot stop the run like the last 2 times and Andy Reid just presses on that one. Pacheco goes for 150 and 2 touchdowns. That could certainly happen there. And then for the Niners, you've got Brock Purdy at plus 200. I think this is just disrespectful here. Sure, the Niners have great perimeter talent here with McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, and Kittle, but the quarterback being plus 200, I mean, if all things are equal, even if McCaffrey has a huge day, I think they still might give it to Purdy here unless he has a couple horrible interceptions. Like, even in those Lions and Packers games, McCaffrey had 2 touchdowns, but would they give it to McCaffrey over Purdy? I don't really know because Purdy led them down for the game-winning drives in those 2 games with some clutch throws and runs there. So I do think that there's great value on those, but you never know how the voters are going to decide there. And then if you want Debo, Ayuk, or Kittle, you're just getting great odds on those. And then potentially you could even dive into a Nick Bosa plus 7,500 or any defensive player that you think will get a touchdown in this game. That's basically what has to happen. And then if they're a D lineman or linebacker, you're going to have to rely on them getting a couple sacks, couple tackles as well. And if it's a secondary player, they've got to have probably multiple interceptions and a few tackles as well. So with all that being said, let me know what you guys think of all of my Super Bowl prop bets. Let me know your favorite Super Bowl prop bet in the comments down below. Be sure to be wise with your money. Shorten down the unit size for these prop bets especially. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe. I will see you all in the next one.